sign Executive Order number 2019-03 in order establishing the Governor's Advisory Panel for creating a Nevada Cannabis Compliance Board. And what we're hoping to do is that this board will begin meeting quickly to establish ideas for a Cannabis Compliance Board. We will forward that to the Legislature and come up with a plan for a permanent compliance board. So it is with great pleasure that I sign this executive order. That was it. Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
This is going to cost money?
No, the board itself isn't going to cost any money. My incredible legal counsel, Mr. Bryn Gibson, immediately behind you, is going to be chairing this board, which we're looking forward to coming up with a policy. Now, what the actual board, once it's established, will be, and the budget associated with that is something that I'm leaving to this group, this advisory group, to make a recommendation.
So we don't know who's going to be on the board, the permanent board?
We don't know who's going to be on the permanent board or how many people there are going to be even on the permanent board. I'm leaving that up to the advisory panel to make recommendations as it relates to who and how many people should be on that board.
Will this have an impact on future growth and sales in the marijuana industry, or if it does, how do you think it will impact it?
Absolutely. I think it's going to impact it in a very positive way. I think it's going to give them a roadmap and a guidance moving forward. I've contended all along that this industry has invested hundreds of millions of dollars statewide. They provide employment for a tremendous amount of individuals, and they provide significant tax resources for the state of Nevada as well. And this will be a roadmap and guidance for these companies moving forward.
What does the industry need that the Department of Taxation currently isn't providing?
I think that they need consistency, and it's not that the Department of Taxation isn't providing it, but we've got an issue with different jurisdictions have different rules as it relates to advertising. I think this is the advantage of coming from a local government entity. Every local government entity has their own rules, and it's made it difficult for the industry to know what's advertising is allowed in one, isn't allowed in another one. The hours can be set differently in different ones, and I think we need constancy and the continuity of the regulations statewide in order for them to be able to function effectively.
I think it was in the State of the State that you mentioned that you wanted fair taxation for the industry. Right. I mean, do you see areas where there are possible things that are not fair?
I'm not going to call them not fair, I'm going to call them inconsistent. And I think that it's incumbent, it would be, same example would be with the gaming industry, and I've used that as a gold standard moving forward. The rules are the same, whether you're in Sparks or Washoe or Henderson or Clark. I mean, the rules are the same, and I would like the same thing for cannabis.
With marijuana still being illegal on the federal level, what do you see the biggest challenge for Nevada to be with that?
Well, I think that the challenge is that this board, once it's established, will be in constant awareness of what's going on at the federal level. There are real issues that we're facing on a state level, on local jurisdictions, not solely, but banking is a big, big consideration. You know, we've got individuals paying their taxes and whatnot in backpacks full of $10 and $20 bills. You've got the issue about consumption lounges, what should be or shouldn't be, and there needs to be a plan moving forward. And I think that it's a big responsibility to have this panel and then have the board permanently established so that they can come up with reasonable regulations and a path moving forward.
And I just wanted to, pardon the interruption, I just wanted to make sure you know that we've got Director Young here, Director of Taxation, and then Bryn Gibson as well, who's our General Counsel in the administration.
And you're going to chair? Is that?
I am.
Okay.
Is the board going to be able to come up with recommendations or proposed legislation before the session is over?
Absolutely. The ideas that the panel will have, and we've got the date set up here that hopefully by, I think it was set to be March 15th, they come back with some recommendations. I know it's a big responsibility, but I've got such utmost confidence in my counsel, Mr. Gibson, to be able to get the board to where it needs to get the input from everybody, that they can give the legislature some idea what we want moving forward so we can have it in statute by the end of the session.
Do you have any ideas at this point about, are you going to look at other states for modeling how it's going to work here or anything?
We're going to have a number of presentations. I've already done lots of research. I've spent hundreds of hours already looking at this. In my previous life, I was chief of the gaming division in the Attorney General's office, and so I've had the opportunity to regulate a highly regulated industry, privileged industry. And so I'm going to use my experience there to implement the same kinds of controls and constructs here in marijuana. What I'd say is, I'd encourage you to read the executive order. It goes through the history of the Gaming Control Act. It's a document. It's 463 in particular, NRS 463. It's a document that's evolved. It's evolved with pressures from the federal government, for example, and state governments, and it's responded to those. And this is the same kind of place that we find ourselves in with cannabis.
Mhm.
Is your administration proposing any bills ahead of whatever this commission might come up with related to cannabis?
No, this is our foray, I guess I'd say, into the industry. And then it's an industry that, like I said, I think is similar to gaming. It's an industry that's going to be highly regulated, and the licensing is difficult, but it's something that I think we need to get a handle on immediately because there's been inconsistencies as it relates to the different jurisdictions and questions about the process. And it's always been my goal to make this open and transparent as it possibly can be, and that's what I believe that a Cannabis Compliance Board will do. It will make it open, the meetings will be public, so that everybody gets an opportunity to see what's happening the same way Gaming Control Board is.
Right now, we don't know the names of people who were awarded the conditional licenses, and my understanding that's an interpretation of a regulation. Are you guys going to propose an amendment to that regulation at this point?
I'll let Britton go with that one. That's something that they're planning on looking at.
What I'd say just generally is whenever you have a restricted oligopoly, essentially, and then you have very little transparency, and that's a construct that's no one's fault. I mean, it's evolved through an amendment, an initiative petition to the Constitution, and then through statutory development, and then regs. It's very difficult to understand, how things happen, how things are graded, how licenses are awarded. And in order to reestablish, and to grow the public trust, I think we have to increase transparency going forward. I'd leave it at that.
I think one of the reasons why some of these entities have been so private is they fear federal repercussions. Are you going to have them come before a board and ask for a license and have their background publicly vetted?
I think it should operate in the same way. I don't want to prejudge too much because this board will have lots of experience, people will have their own views, and the governor will direct us, according to his own experience. But I think that we're operating under a states' rights sort of construct. And insofar as we're doing that, we have to act like this is legitimate. It is legitimate. We'll defend it. And accordingly, I think we need to have public meetings, public hearings, public awardings of licenses. The background materials themselves in the gaming context, they're generally confidential. And so I don't know what we'll do with that. But yes, a much more transparent public process going forward.
I want the applicants and the public to know what's going on in the system. And thus far, because of the way it's been, our regulation conducted, that hasn't been the case. And if we're going to continue to allow this industry to flourish, and that's my intent, I think that's what we need to do.
Any final questions?
For the average viewer who doesn't think they're affected by this executive order, how are they? Why does it matter to them?
Well, what I want them to know, everyone, is that this industry has an enormous investment in our state. They have an enormous investment in the citizens of our state in terms of employing them, and it generates a lot of tax revenue. So it does affect every single citizen up and down the spectrum, how this industry is regulated. And it's important to us that it be conducted in an open, transparent, and fair manner. And that's what I think the board will end up doing, but the advisory panel will give us guidance in terms of setting this up. I mean, if you go way back with the Gaming Control Board, they had to have plans to move forward with what the Gaming Control Board is going to be, and it's a big responsibility for these individuals that are on this advisory panel to come up with those recommendations, but I'm confident that they're going to be able to get us where we need to be.
And just quickly, right now, we still don't have a specific time frame when we're going to see the board actually meeting for the first time? Or?
Which board?
Yeah.
The final board. So given the way that 453D, it was enacted by initiative petition, it can't be amended until after November 22nd of this year. And so this board would become effective, hopefully, legislation would become effective on that date, so it would be prospective legislation. So we see this new agency stood up at that time, and so post November 22nd.
Okay.
Your former primary opponent is on the advisory panel. Can you explain why you did that, and have you guys made amends after a difficult primary?
It was a difficult primary, but this is about policy, not about politics. Commissioner Giuliano was at the forefront of cannabis legalization back in the early 2000s, and we spent a lot of years together on the county commission dealing with these issues, and I think that she'll provide some insight into the regulation and the formulation of the policies moving forward. I think she's got a lot to bring to the table.
And she's accepted.
She has accepted.
All right. We'll wrap it there. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Can I get a couple shots of those really quick?
Sure.
Randall?